888 Westgate Road.
I saw a guy holding a gun.
Shooting people right there with a shotgun, black shirt, green pants. People are coming out with their hands up. I need them covered.
There are 5 fatalities that we know of.
We have had several people there in the hospital.
The shooter is in custody and being interrogated at this time.
Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Jonathan Elias, coming to you live from Annapolis. It's been a very difficult day here. There was an attack on the local paper here, the Capital Gazette, and when it was over, 5 members of the staff had been murdered, gunned down by a man who walked in with a shotgun just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. The suspected gunman has already been identified as Jared Ramos. Police saying tonight that this was a thought-out and targeted attack. Now, 7 is on your side with team coverage this evening. Throughout this newscast, we're going to be digging into what that man's history is, why he may have done this, what vendetta he had against the newspaper. But we're going to start things off right away with our own Maryland Bureau Chief Brad Bell. He was the first on the scene, the first on the air, talking about and getting from his sources very good information about what took place inside that small paper today. Brad?
Yeah, Jonathan, we did learn an awful lot about what happened during the attack, but tonight we're learning, and we have learned perhaps the saddest news of all. We now have all of the names of the 5 victims, and we'd like to share them with you right now. Wendy Winters, a writer, well known in town among the victims. Rebecca Smith, a relatively new hire at the paper, a sales assistant. Robert Hyacin, an editor at the paper, who wrote a column on Sundays. Gerald Fishman, an editorial writer. And John McNamara, a sports editor and the man who literally wrote the book on the University of Maryland sports, all killed here today in this attack. The nightmare of a mass shooter in America playing out again, this time in Annapolis.
Terrible tragedy here in Anne Arundel County.
Across the street from the Annapolis Mall, a reporter in the newsroom describes hearing people shot, hearing the gunman reload. It's bad. 5 people are killed, 3 wounded.
It was a targeted attack on the Capital Gazette. He entered the building with a shotgun, and he looked for his victims as he walked through the lower level.
Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Police arrive in 60 seconds. They race into the building. They encounter the gunman. He's already dropped his weapon and is quickly taken into custody. Police say the man had a grudge against the paper, had made social media threats indicating violence, and seemed to plan his attack, even carrying and using smoke grenades to cover his actions.
This person was prepared today to come in. This person was prepared to shoot people. His intent was to cause harm.
Now, the one thing that everyone is saying out here is that this could have been much, much worse. A lot of credit being put at the feet of the officers. Annapolis City Police officers who responded across the county line. They were the first ones in there. They confronted that gunman. They stopped the attack. And as we said, from the governor to the county executive to the chief of police, all of them saying if it wasn't for those heroic actions, this could have been much worse. Jonathan?
Brad, there's no question about that. In fact, we asked around. They said that the response time, because we're only 3 miles from the state capitol, was 60 seconds from the call going out for help to police confronting that gunman inside the Gazette. We can also tell you this. It was just 6 days ago that there was an active shooter drill that was carried out by the first responders, the police department, the fire department, city officials. They were all there. And this was a drill.
A week ago, we practiced an active shooter training thing. We did not expect something like this to happen in our community, but we were ready, and I don't think we could have put any more resources. If you look behind you at what's been done here, it's a tremendous response.
What's so sad about that, too, is the Capital Gazette covered that active shooter drill. They took pictures and they told the stories of first responders going through the motions on that drill just 6 days ago. Today, the real thing played out in their offices. That man with a shotgun blowing his way through the glass door that separated that lobby area from the main office, and once inside, there was nowhere for the people inside to hide. There was 170 people inside that building. There were law offices and doctor offices. Everybody was running from that building. Our Tim Barber caught up with some of those folks who saw horrific images as they were leaving that building. Tim?
Jonathan, the man we talked to first heard the gunshots, then saw the gunman, and then moments later, the police rushed in.
Oh, I was on the phone with a client and heard a loud noise, like an incredibly loud bang, and I poked my head around the corner of my desk so I could see out our front door into the front door of the Capitol Gazette, and I saw a guy. I saw a guy holding a gun.
Keith Cyphers and his coworkers hid while the gunman shot his way through the newsroom across the hall.
The door of the Capitol Gazette had been blown to pieces. It was in shattered pieces all on the carpet, and this guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun and moving across the entrance of the Capitol Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office, like he was targeting people.
5 people were killed. Others were injured. No one knows why.
I heard some indistinct shouting after another couple minutes before there were some more gunshots, but he didn't. I mean, I only looked at him for a second, right? I ducked my head back behind the wall as soon as I saw the guy initially, but I didn't hear him say anything distinct. I looked around the corner a second time and I saw a young woman who looked like she'd been hurt. She was on the ground.
Injured?
I mean, there was a bunch of blood on the floor, so I assume so.
Seconds later, the police rushed in.
They actually broke down our office door, and then they escorted us out. You know, they escorted us out with our hands up over our heads.
And understandably, so many of those people who walked out with their hands up were not ready to share their stories tonight. Jonathan?
And you can absolutely understand that. Tim, thanks very much. They tell you in these active shooter drills, there's 3 things you should either do: hide, flee, or fight. There were a lot of people that were fleeing and a lot of people that were hiding. 170 people had to be evacuated out of that building, as I've said. And when they were coming out of the building, police, from their standpoint, they don't know who's a good guy or bad guy, so everybody comes out with their hands up. And that's what happened this afternoon.
They told us to move to the back of the room and stay there, and they locked us down. They locked the front door, and we had to stay there until the police came. Several police came. They actually brought a person that was injured into the front entryway for a short while, and then she was picked up by an ambulance.
Now, behind me again, the building is an active crime scene. Investigators are going through that building, especially the Gazette office, trying to retrace the gunman's steps and figure out what was going on. But it became very apparent to a lot of us that this is a very personal matter for them, because this is a small paper, the Capitol Gazette. And with the local police department, they deal with these folks and talk to these folks and see these folks every single day. So some of those folks that were killed were actually friends and people that they'd been talking to. And now they're trying to solve their deaths.
Capitol newspaper is our local newspaper. We interact with the Capitol newspaper daily. We have friends at the Capitol newspaper. We speak with these men and women on a daily basis to get stories out that are important to the citizens of this county. So we're here, we're invested, we're going to get this investigation right.
Yeah, the Capitol Gazette really is one of the oldest newspapers in America. This started back in 1727 as the Maryland Gazette. The newspaper moved to its current location on Bestgate Road back in 2014. The paper's distribution is about 110,000 people. It goes out to Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, Kent Island, and Bowie. And I can tell you today, when the call went out that there was an active shooter inside the building, police from not just one, but as many as 10 agencies were flooding into this area to assist. And in fact, in some of the neighborhoods, the police were taking their time because they didn't know maybe there were more gunmen involved, so they didn't know what to look for. And that got a lot of the neighbors, as you can imagine, on edge. Heather Graff picks up our team coverage with that side of the story. Heather?
Well, certainly some tense moments here, Jonathan, and here's why. Behind me, a row of homes. To my right, police tape stretching through someone's front yard. And just beyond that line of trees is the building where today's shooting took place.
Just off Bestgate Road sits this usually quiet Annapolis neighborhood.
And I got a text saying, "Are you okay?"
A neighborhood where Thursday's deadly shooting hit far too close to home.
And walked out and saw caution tape on my front porch and saw the FBI and the police, and then quickly realized there is a shooter basically in my backyard.
That's because the building where the Capitol Gazette offices are located is only about 50 yards from where Katie Lax lives with her family.
It's heartbreaking. It's shocking. You can't process it when you first hear.
Still, she knows those who were inside that building when the gunman opened fire endured even worse.
And the next thing you know, he's like, "You need to get out, you need to get out." So then we all ran out into the hallway, and we had to stand beside the elevator. Then he pushed all of us into the elevator, and then we had to leave out the building with our hands up.
And it's those people, the survivors, the victims, and their loved ones, that this entire neighborhood is now praying for.
It will be a process to heal for families and the whole community, I'm sure.
And we should also mention that neighbors here tell us the FBI was actually knocking on their doors earlier this evening, asking people if they have security cameras set up outside of their home and perhaps looking for video evidence that could be crucial as this investigation moves forward. Jonathan, back to you.
Heather, thanks very much for that, Heather. You know, shortly after being briefed on this shooting, President Trump took to Twitter, quote, "My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families." The president said in a tweet. He also said, "Thank you to all the first responders who are currently on scene." And the vice president sent out a similar text as well, or tweet. I should tell you this, before the name of the suspected gunman in this case was even released, our I-team was already digging deep into his background. Senior investigative reporter Lisa Fletcher joining us now with what she dug up. And, you know, Lisa, the big question everybody wants to know is what kind of beef did he have with this newspaper?
Well, it's something significant. 38-year-old Jared Ramos has quite a history with the Capital Gazette. He lost a civil suit and an appeal against the paper. He accused the paper of defamation for a story reporting on his guilty plea for criminal harassment in 2011, where he, according to reports from the victim, put her in fear for her life for months. As part of his guilty plea, his sentence was suspended in lieu of probation. He was required to go to therapy and not contact his victim or her family. His Twitter feed and website full of ramblings about corruption in the courts and media. He graphically and aggressively tweets directly at or about current or former Capital Gazette employees, warning one that journalist hell awaits. In fact, his Twitter profile says he is making corpses of corrupt careers and corporate entities. His last tweet within an hour of the shooting said, "F you, leave me alone," to a judge. In a number of disturbing tweets, he references the 2015 mass shooting at Paris's Charlie Hebdo newspaper using the hashtag Je suis. According to reports, Ramos has a degree in computer engineering and for 6 years worked for the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Jonathan?
All right, Lisa, thanks very much. Good digging on your part. You know, once police were able to identify Ramos, and this was kind of one of those investigations that literally the wheels were moving quickly, because just a few hours after the shooting took place, Skytrack 7 was already over the scene of a home in Laurel that they said belonged to the shooter, and they were already executing a search warrant. Annalisa Gale joins us now from that neighborhood where she's been for hours talking to some of his neighbors. Annalisa?
Jonathan, just a few minutes ago, we saw more than a dozen marked and unmarked police cars pulling up to Ramos's apartment building. Take a look at this new video just into our newsroom. It shows those ATF agents, state troopers, and also the Laurel Police Department. I'm going to step out of the way here on the You can see some of those cars still parked here on this street. About an hour ago, we tried to ask the Laurel Police Chief a few questions about what is going on here, and he said he could not comment, but we do know that this is the address, again, listed for the suspect, Jared Ramos. This is the Donna Apartments near the Laurel Town Center. Sources tell ABC 7 News that his home will be searched. It's unclear what police are looking for tonight, but we do know that neighbors are worried about what they could find.
Where any time a shooting or mass shooting takes place, there's always thoughts about explosives being in the place, whether they've like booby trapped something. So it's kind of just concern, you know, something like that could happen in our neighborhood.
I think where you live is the safest place around. And then you have to think that a suspected murderer lives in your neighborhood. That doesn't give you much confidence now.
And it's unclear when police will wrap up their investigation, but by the looks of it, they could be here for several hours. Live from Laurel tonight, Annalisa Gale, ABC 7 News.
All right, Annalisa, thanks very much. We can also tell you this, the Capital Gazette, we understand that they will be putting out a paper sometime tomorrow morning. They're going to put it out with the regular edition. In fact, a reporter for the paper putting out this tweet tonight saying, quote, "I can tell you this, we're putting out a damn paper tomorrow." We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with our continuing coverage of the shooting at the Capitol Gazette. I'm Jonathan Elias, coming to you live from Annapolis. Just across the street is the building where that shooting took place. It is still an active investigation, an active crime scene, if you will. But today's attack on the Capitol Gazette really kind of illustrates and underlines a fact that being a journalist is a dangerous job. In fact, if you've ever been to the museum, there is a wall. It's a memorial covered in faces. All those faces are people who have lost their lives in the line of doing this job. And in fact, just last month, there was a crew that was killed down in North Carolina covering severe weather. Allison Parker and her photographer were murdered in 2015 in Roanoke while they were live on the air. Jay Korf is joining us now with our team coverage to talk about the reaction the museum has when something like this happens. Jay?
The museum in downtown Washington posts a variety of headlines every day from across the nation. It's likely that many of Friday's editions will point to a sobering truth. Journalism can be a dangerous profession. Inside the building towers the Journalists' Memorial, where more than 2,000 names of broadcasters, photographers, editors, and reporters killed on the job are etched in glass. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 29 journalists have been killed while working in 2018. Last year, 46. Their lives are often taken in the crossfire of danger zones or by criminal organizations, not in their offices in suburban Maryland. Gene Policinski, a founding editor of USA Today, is the president of the Freedom Forum Institute within the museum.
First thing you have to go through your mind is, what was the motivation?
While the full picture of Thursday's horror is still coming into focus, Policinski wonders if the shooter was motivated to attack because of something that was written.
If in fact it was somebody who was motivated to attack journalists because of the job they do, how stupid and tragic is that? What an insane reason to go after people. Because they write news you don't like.
Jay Korf for ABC 7 News.
Reaction tonight from the White House. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, who works alongside journalists every day, tweeting tonight that strongly condemns this, quote, evil act. Sanders adding, quote, a violent attack on innocent journalists doing their job is an attack on every American. Our prayers are with the victims and their friends and family. And New York City deployed counterterrorism teams to guard news and media companies around the city. Police said that the extra security at dozens of locations like New York Times and ABC wasn't based on any specific threats that they'd gotten, but rather an abundance of caution. Police also upped security at news organizations both in cities of Chicago and in Los Angeles. And again, this is a situation here in Annapolis where this crime scene is still being investigated. They're still putting the pieces together, but they now have identified the person they believe is the gunman, and they have identified the 5 people that were killed. 2 others, we understand, were gravely wounded. That's the latest from Annapolis. For now, though, Bill, let's go back to you and talk about something a bit brighter and maybe a little warmer as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonathan. A quick look at your weather, guys. We're looking at no storms in our area. We have high pressure that's building in. Our big weather story going to be the heat. You can see how dry it is around our region. As this high pressure works in the next couple of days, our temperature's going up considerably, so it will be hazy, hot, and humid. Your day tomorrow looks like this. Out the door at 8 o'clock, 75 degrees. By 1, we're already into the upper 80s. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I expect it to jump into the low 90s, feeling most likely like the mid-90s. Plenty of sunshine tomorrow, but it is one of those days that you're going to want to drink a lot of water if you're spending some time outside. Hotter on Saturday, hotter on Sunday. 97 the expected high on Saturday, but when we look at the feels-like temperatures, we're quickly jumping up into the 90s by 11 o'clock, up into that triple-digit range by the afternoon. And our dry trend should go right into next week, and most likely, at least at this point, through the 4th of July. So a look at that right now, same kind of thing, low 90s. It's going to be very humid during the day, and for your 4th of July fireworks forecast, it's looking dry, humid, with those temperatures in the 80s. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. I'm Jonathan Elias, live in Annapolis. This really is a city in shock when you think about it. After this attack on the small-town paper, the Capitol Gazette, the deadly attack that left 5 dead. At this hour, here's the very latest. 5 people were killed. 2 of them editors, a reporter, a sales assistant, and an editorial writer. The man believed to be behind all of this, his name is Jared Ramos, 38 years old, lives in Laurel, Maryland. Now, our team is learning that Ramos had sued that paper for defamation after their reporting about his criminal history. Police say this was a planned, targeted attack. They say that he brought smoke grenades to try and conceal himself as he walked through the newsroom, finding his targets and opening fire. The incredible thing here is the response from police. They were on the scene, we understand, in 1 minute flat, hopefully keeping this bad situation, this horrible situation, from getting any worse. We'll be right back. I'm back now live in Annapolis, continuing to follow that deadly attack that took place at the Capitol Gazette, the building just behind me, still an active crime scene as we speak, the investigation ongoing. So much of what we learned today took place on social media. Reporters in the newsroom were tweeting out details about what was happening inside the newsroom as that shooting was taking place. Lindsay Mastis has some of those messages for us.
The tweets are chilling. This is the first. This was posted by an intern. It says, active shooter 888 Bestgate, please help us. And once the shooting stopped, crime reporter Phil Davis began revealing what he saw, tweeting, a single shooter shot multiple people at my office, some of whom are dead. Gunman shot through the glass door to the office and opened fire on multiple employees. There is nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload. And journalists who weren't in the office, they let their friends and family know that they were safe. Bill Wagner tweeting, many of my colleagues and friends are not okay, and that is solely where my thoughts are right now. Other Capitol Gazette employees simply tweeting, devastated, just devastated, and heartbroken.
As we say goodnight to you, we want to leave you with some of the images, some of the sights and sounds from what happened today here at the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis. It is a very difficult day, and all of us here at ABC7 keeping our journalism colleagues in our thoughts and sending prayers to all of those affected by today's tragedy. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.